Hi, I'm Lindsay from Shreve Memorial Library and welcome to Art Club. Today we're going to learn about a woodcut artist. This is a little bit of a departure from what we normally do or the kind of paintings that we normally do. Her name was Frances Gearhart and she was an American woodcut artist who painted landscapes with woodcuts. Now a woodcut is pretty much, say you get a block of wood and you carve the negative out of whatever you want to make, and then you put ink or paint or something on it and you turn it over and you make a print out of it, kind of like a stamp. So woodcuts had multiple editions. Evidently this one that we're doing was a set of 50. She painted it sometime between 1928 and 1930. She was alive from 1869 to 1959, so that was a while ago, but she's still later than a lot of the artists that we're doing, and most of the paintings that we've worked on, the originals were done about 1920. Now this isn't the only woodcut artist we've talked about. Edvard Munch, the artist who made the Scream painting, that guy, yeah, he did a lot of woodcuts too, and he left like 1,500 of them. You should Google them. They're interesting. I really like Gearhart's style a lot better than Munch's woodcut style though, so that's just me. So here's how we're going to approach this. We're going to do this painting a lot differently than we normally do. The supplies you'll need are a pencil, an eraser. An eraser on your pencil is fine, but you need a decent eraser this time for sure. Some kind of paint, crayons will work. Really, paints or markers, something water-based is your best bet on this one. And a pen. You'll need a black pen, as thick a nib as you have. I'm going to use a brush pen. Those go from thin to thick pretty easy. I'm no master of brush pens, but this is what I have, so use what you have. Because the way we're going to do it is we're going to draw the basic outline, and then we're going to erase it just so we can kind of still see it. And then we're going to paint it, and then we're going to go back with a pen and put in all of those lovely black lines. That's the part of the painting that she considered the most important, and that's the part that we're going to spend the most time on. Now it might look a little bit complicated. I'm calling this a detail level 1. It's really simple once we get into it, and most of it's like just little scribbles. So this don't be worried about this one. This is definitely one of the easier ones we've done. So let's get started. My first bit of advice on this one is draw lightly. I'm going to be drawing lightly. You draw even more lightly just so you can barely see it, and you'll see how little detail we're actually putting into this part and how much of it we're going to erase. Because remember, once you get pencil wet or get watercolor on it, you won't be able to erase it. So we have to make the pencil stand out as little as we possibly can while putting the bones of the painting in. So here's how we're going to do this. Okay, the main point in this thing is that big Joshua tree that spans the whole left side, right? So we're going to decide where that is first, and it comes to about here and it goes like this. I'm just going to draw the line of where it goes. Also keep in mind that what we're doing here is bigger than the original. It was, I think I saw 4.4 inches by 6.4 inches. So like, think of just a 4x6 photo. It was pretty small. What we're doing here, well, what I'm doing here is 8x10. So if you want to work smaller than this, go to. Okay, so let's just draw the line of the tree. If it goes here, up here, it kind of curves, right? So I'm just going to draw this line very lightly down here. See, you can kind of see that. It's really light. Okay. So now I'm going to just draw in like the trunk shape, and it's going to go, it comes like this and then up and then down like that. And then this side comes up along here to about there. And then this side comes about there. Okay. Now, if you've done some floral paintings with me for Art Club, you'll know that we just draw circles to start with flowers and then add the detail, and that's exactly what we're going to do here. So I'm just going to decide where these puffs of needles are, The Joshua tree is akin to a pine tree, so it's like needles. So, and there's one over here, and I'm just gonna make a light circle for now, okay? And then his stem comes down like that, kind of, right? Okay, and then this extends up here, kind of like that. And I'm gonna put one over here, like this. I'm remembering to draw them pretty big just because it's bigger proportionally, and our proportions aren't exactly the same. This is the original is a little bit narrower, so we're kind of stretching things out just a wee bit, but hopefully not too noticeably. There's more up here, and don't worry about drawing perfect circles because these aren't perfect circles. So I'm gonna do that. This guy comes over here, and then there's another guy, I think that's like this. And then there's another one right here. See how light I'm drawing? And then you'll see, like, I'm gonna be erasing most of this. So this guy comes here. He's kind of like oval shaped a little bit, like that, because he's off to the side a little bit. And then he comes back, and like that, into the rest of the tree. There's another one here. And another one here that's kind of like an, ooh, that's too big. That's kind of like an oval. Okay? And this guy, this big part that comes out like that. And then like that. And that. And really, that's it, except I'm gonna make this guy bigger and this guy bigger, so I can just kind of connect some stuff up there. And this kind of blends into that. That can be bigger. And here pretty much is our tree. And this is all the detail we're putting into it right now. So let's draw the land back here, and it goes, most of our details coming in later. We're gonna have to be brave with that pen. And then there's the land, right? Right now we're figuring out where we're gonna put our paint and what colors. And then there's a mountain back here. And you can make this mountain look however you want. I wouldn't put too many details in it because we're gonna have to paint around that part. And that's our drawing. That was super easy, wasn't it? Okay, now here's what we're gonna do. I know I drew light. Well, I'm gonna go back and completely erase any lines that I wasn't happy with in the first place, and then go back and erase the whole thing lightly so I can still see it. Barely. You might not even be able to see it. But that's just, this is our guide for painting. And just remember, I know I keep harping on it, but remember, once you paint or get graphite wet, you will not be able to erase it anymore. So keep that in mind. So let's just do some erasing. Okay, so there are a couple more spots. You can see, hopefully on yours, you might not even be able to see mine at all, but you should be able to see on yours like faint lines, and that is just going to help us watercolor. Or use a marker. Markers are fine. Just I would really suggest something that's water-based this time, since we're going in with a pen or a marker afterward. And if you do that when you're using a crayon or something, you're going to have issues. If you do use crayons, go back and instead of using a pen, use like a black crayon to do it, to make the lines. Okay, we have reached the painting portion. I know. So let's get this thing painted. You might notice that the brushes I have here are a lot bigger than the ones I normally use, and that's just because we're not doing anything with detail in this. We are going to use some different techniques, some actual watercolor techniques this time, and so it's best really if you have a big brush. If you don't have a big brush, that's fine too. Normally what we do is we just kind of treat the paint like a crayon and color in like a coloring book, and that's not what we're gonna do so much today. We're gonna do what's called wet and wet, at least at the top, which means what we normally do is called wet and dry. It's just wet paint on dry paper. Wet and wet is when you paint with wet paint on already wet paper, and that helps the paint spread out and for you to get a more even coat of paint. It also helps in blending paint, which is what we're going to do. But keep in mind that for a lot of watercolor, the way that doing it like this with these colors would not work, because what we're going to do is we're going to do some blue for the top of the sky and then some yellow for the bottom of the sky. But we're going to let that green mix, because if you see in Gearhart's painting, she lets the green happen. And that's the reason a lot of the time in paintings, when it's, when it goes from blue to yellow, there's like a pink in there, because that prevents the pink is the barrier, because it blends with the blue and with the yellow, and then makes the orange and the purples, which are really pretty colors, and it prevents the green. But we're gonna let the green happen because that's what Gearhart did. We're also, if you look at the painting, you can see that the blue, it looks like the tree is toned with the colors that she was using. So it's like there was a layer that was the sky, right? And then the tree was painted on top of it, because in the top of the tree is kind of toned blue and the bottom is kind of toned yellow along with that sky. So we're going to do that too. So we're just going to paint the whole sky, okay? And then we're going to do the whole mountains, and we're going to use light washes of watercolor, which means that we're using a lot of water. And then we're going to do the mountains, and then we're going to do the desert floor, and then we're going to dry the whole thing, and then we're going to put in the green and the brown. Okay? Adventures in painting. This is new for art club, but it's not hard, I promise. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to get some water on my brush, okay? Get a good bit of water on my brush, and I'm going to paint it with water, but I'm only going to go down to the line of my mountains, and that's why we still need to be able to see it. I'm going to just paint right over that tree. I'm not concerned with the tree or any detail of the tree. All I'm worried about is I don't want to go below my line of the mountains, because the mountains are going to be blue. So let's go in. You don't have to be exact. The paint can make its own lines to a certain extent. You just don't want it like way off. Okay, I'm gonna get it nice and wet. Now, I guess I should have specified. You can do this with like cardstock or something, but you're gonna get a much better result if you're using watercolor paper. So if you're not using watercolor paper, and if you are, depending on what kind you're using, your mileage may vary. I happen to be using Arteza paper, which is student grade watercolor paper from Amazon. So if nothing else, try it and see how it turns out. No harm in that. Okay, so now I'm gonna get some blue, put it in there. Now remember, I'm making a light wash. I'm kind of hurrying because my paper's wet. Always test. This was me testing with the pens. And remember that your paint will dry lighter than it looks like it is when it's wet. So get the amount of paint like you want. Okay, so all I'm going to do is all this wet area, I'm going to paint. I'm going to be careful when I get down to the mountains, but that's it. Get some more paint because I want it a little darker. Oh wait, I'm not going all the way to the mountain. Nothing. I'm going about oh, almost 2/3 of the way down the sky. And don't worry if you get splatters, it doesn't matter. Because we're okay with that green. I'm going to add some more blue to the top. Ah! So it's darker. Snagged my red, but that's okay. Okay. Now I'm going to clean my brush good. Make sure there's no more paint on it. And then I'm going to go back with yellow. This is a light yellow. Ooh, that's too light. We want a lot more yellow than that. And I see the blue's already mixing green for us. Okay. And then I'm going to paint from the bottom, just along the line of the mountains. I'm just going over the tree. And letting this come up, and letting it hit the blue and blend into the blue, and when it wants to turn green, it can turn green. I'm not bothered with green on this one. And there's my sky. Actually, I think I might go, and this blue is not very bright. You can go in and add some more. Just be sure when you do this, if you do this, that your painting is still wet or you'll have a bad time. Ooh, and this paper does not like that much water on it. One thing you'll notice with watercolor paper is the type of paper you're using makes a huge difference with the way your painting turns out. Normally, if I do this, if I'm doing it for me, I'll use paper that's 100% cotton, which, but that's more expensive. And so I'm using this. I think it's going to be fine for our purposes. But just remember, you'll get, if you use paper, if you use better paper, you'll end up with a better result, and there will be less buckling because the 100% cotton paper absorbs more paint. So, and this is made out of wood pulp. Okay, there's our sky. Now I'm going to go and paint the desert, which is just more yellow. It's just a lot more yellow. So I'm going to go in and get a much more pigmented yellow. Actually, that is yellow ochre. Now, if you want to mix the yellow ochre, you can. I have it here, so I'm just going to use it. That's this. If you want to mix a yellow ochre, if you don't have it, just mix a little bit of brown into your yellow. You see the difference? Let me make sure you can see that. See the difference between these two? Yellow ochre is an earthy color, and the other yellow is not. This is like a, yeah, primary yellow is the other one that we have here. So I'm going to go in and paint this desert floor. I'm not worried about where the tree is. I'm not worried about where any of that other stuff is on the ground. I am just worried about the desert right now. And then we'll worry about the rest of it in a little bit. So you see how differently this has turned out, how much less, because this I've painted wet on dry, how much less buckly this is, but how there's nothing, it's more, I wouldn't be able to blend it like this if it wasn't wet and wet. And wet also gives you some interesting results. So, okay, so now we can't paint the mountains yet because it would run into both of these and we'd be unhappy. So what I'm going to do is dry this painting completely, and then we're going to do the mountains. Okay, I'll say my painting is 98% dry. There's a little spot there, but you know. Okay, so now we're going to go in with the same blue, just more pigmented, which just means it's more paint and less water than we were doing before. I'm going to use a smaller brush because this has a smaller area and get a good bit of paint out because I want it more potent, and that's going to take this paint a minute because it does not like giving up its color. Okay, now where's my tester? Gonna test it. Yeah, that's a pretty big difference. I want more of a difference, so just get more paint. If I was really frustrated with it, I'd just switch to the other blue because I happen to have another one. I need to clean that up, but I'm not going to. Okay, that's good enough. I'm going to paint my mountains blue. And my mountains are blue. What I'm going to do now is dry the whole thing completely again, and then we're going to do the tree. Okay, of course I got a drop of watercolor on there, but that's just going to be that. Because if I sop it up, it's just going to turn white. Anyway. Okay, so now I'm going to go back with this and start on the tree. So for the tree, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some green. I'm going to go with this darker green. Go with the bluier green. And I'm going to paint right over that blue. Let's see what that's going to look like. That's not too bad. Okay, and I see my little lines up here. I'm just going to paint in the little lines that I can only half see. I'll mess with that later. Okay. If I go outside of them, that's really not a big deal. There's my green. You see how much detail I'm putting it into it. Don't worry about details. It's just the balls, and then there's this one little part, where the green is coming down, and then it kind of transitions into the yellow ochre-ish color. So I'm just going to get some more of this. I'm actually going to add a wee bit of brown to it, like that. Okay, just added a wee bit of brown to it. Then I'm going to come down and I'm going to let these paints flow together, which normally is a big no-no for me and a thing that I'm really bad about letting happen. But today, we're going to let them flow together. Let's see. So don't worry about it. I'm just kind of going because I'm not even sure where my lines are exactly. So we're just gonna go with it. And let's see, this comes down like that. A little ways, because we're not going to do this whole thing, because we're going to switch to brown at some point. Okay. That comes, let's see, this is yellow ochre, comes about down here. I can barely see my lines, but that's why I made it so I could still kind of see them. And then this comes down like that. And that's still yellowy color. And this kind of ends jaggedly like that. Okay? Next, we're going to do brown. And we're just going to go in, get some straight brown. This is another, what is this, burnt umber? That does not like to release its color. That's okay. If you want to play along with the specific palette, this is student grade Sennelier paint. It's called Sennelier La Petite Aquarelle, and this is just a little set of 12. Okay, so I got some brown. And I'm going to paint the rest of the bottom of the tree brown, and I'm going to not worry about yellow running into it either. And that is the end of our painting today. So all we need to do now is, well, we need to do the main part of it next. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this dry 100%, and then we are going to go back with our pens and make the important lines and add some detail to this thing. Okay, I've let it dry except for this little bit that I think I've given up on trying to fix. That's one thing about watercolor, is that once you do something accidental like that, it's really hard and a lot of the times impossible to fix, and whenever you mess with it, it just makes it worse. I'm just gonna leave it as it is. Okay, so now I'm gonna put up my paints and all of that, and I'm gonna go in with a pen. Now, you can use whatever kind of pen you want. I suggest you use one with a wide nib if you're using a pen, which just means that it makes bold lines. You can also use a marker. Markers are great. Just be sure whatever you're using, that looks almost like a cloud, we'll call it a cloud. Whatever you are using, just make sure your painting is dry when you do, okay? So here's how we're gonna do this. These are pretty much little pom-poms, right? And all of the detail we're going to add is just the black part on top, okay? So, and don't stress out about this. This is a bunch of squiggles and stuff. So to make the pom-poms, and that's what we'll just call them, you start out, and it's kind of like, start in the middle or wherever you decide the middle is, right? And do some short ones. And those are the ones that are closest to you, and kind of that includes the ones that are pointed toward us. And then go beyond that and then start doing them a little bit longer. Can go out of the thing, that's perfectly fine. And just keep adding them until you've filled up your green area, and you can remember you can go out of it. Don't freak out about it. Don't try not to make it too symmetrical. Like, all of them shouldn't be the same size or the same shape, because that's not the way nature works. Nature makes weird and beautiful things. So that's what makes all this interesting. So just go in and make the needle of your pom-pom, and don't worry about it. Okay? Here's one. And I'm just gonna go and do the same thing with all of them. I'm gonna decide where the center point is and avoid that. And it's just gonna go, let's see, this one I'm gonna say is here. Start off with some small ones really, and then add some bigger ones going around. Some of them aren't facing exactly the right way you want them to, because it's nature. We're just going to turn these into little balls of pine needles. Okay, this one comes up, kind of comes up from the bottom like that. Let's start this one out like that. And then make some longer ones also going kind of like that. And then you see how I'm just kind of building it up like that, and just make them longer and longer. Ooh, that was a little bit long, but we won't know that because that's on the outside of the tape. Okay, and you see how this one's just kind of following the same shape in general as the one in the painting. This one kind of goes out, so I'll start here with the short ones and then go out like that. We're just kind of keeping the general directionality of these things, and that's all we're worried about, just these little lines. Okay, and this one, let's see, this one like starts there or so and then goes out like that. And this is really all we're doing. This is all of these puff balls. And then the rest is just kind of like outlining stuff with scribbles instead of the lines, the kind of lines that we usually use. So I'm just going to go in, I'm going to add some more to that. There's a lot of black in this painting. Oops, I forgot to watercolor this part. I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Then I'm going to avoid that for a little bit and come back to it. Yes, I'm going to avoid that pen. That's the main thing. Because since that pen isn't dry, that'll run too, and I don't want that. This can't just be floating out in the nether. I'm going to let that dry while I do the rest of the painting. I'm just going to try not to get my hand in it. Yeah, it looks good. Okay, I'm not going to dip that in there either. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to skip that one for now, and I'm going to go in and do this one. This one kind of goes out that way. So I think you probably get the point of what I'm doing now. Just going to add bigger lines. Now I'm going to start with the tree itself. I'm going to start about where this transition to this yellow is. And you see there's a lot of black. So I'm just going to go in, and this is where the scribbles come in. I'm just going to scribble the shadow of this. There's stuff popping out of it, like that. Right? But it goes down like this whole side. Kind of like this. Right? This goes down the whole side of the tree like this, and it's just like scribbling black down the whole thing. And then around here, it just kind of changes direction and starts going this way. Right? So I'm just going to change direction myself and make it all scribbly down here, make it uneven. Let's go all the way down to the bottom. It goes down like that, okay? And then we have a jagged line at the bottom of the tree. And then we have kind of the same thing over here, just a little bit thinner. And this all goes this way. There are just holes in this one to show this side is lighter than that other one. And then in the middle we just kind of have some scribbles. So just put little bits in here, kind of going down the same direction as this. Okay, I'm going to bring that up all the way over here, and it's more dense up here, so I'm going to put them closer together. And then around here, it's extra dense around where this hits, so I'm going to just do scribbles over here. I'll leave a few little brown spots, but most of that is going to be black. Okay. And we'll come up here, we're safe here, and we're just gonna make more. It's just like this, it's just like another pom-pom thing, kind of like that. We're just gonna do layers down. It's like that. They don't always go the same way, sometimes they flip up. So don't make them all look the same. Don't make them all come from exactly the same level. Just bring them all the way down to where we hit the brown. Okay. There's that. This just kind of comes down like that. It spikes up and out just like that. And this comes down like that, just like this stuff did, kind of. I'm just going to do the same thing I did up here with this. And then this is the same. It's almost like in layers, like a Christmas tree. Let's bring this down. Okay. Let's see, is this dry enough? Yes, yes. So now I'm going to come up here, I'm going to finish the pom-poms, and this one is really similar to this one. So let's see, we'll say it kind of comes out from here, like that. get longer. And be sure and make some of them pop out of the green, because that makes it more interesting. You can add as many or as few needles as you want. There are a lot in this painting, so I'll leave that up to you. And this just kind of comes down like that. And it's really the same thing, it just has little bits that flip up. And this comes down just like the same way in layers. Okay? And there is our Joshua tree. Now, there are no lines on the mountains, so we're just going to leave them. We're going to leave my little cloud here, which I'm still mad about. But we'll see. Once it's completely dry, I might be able to do something. But you know what? It has, my painting has a cloud in it. That's awesome. Okay. If your painting has a cloud in it, you're also awesome. So, for this land, you see there's just kind of like a little bit of scrub along the top. So I'm just going to kind of scribble tiny, well, not tiny, but light lines like this that show where the land hits, and it's not all the same height, it's just all not really high either. Okay, and there can be a few little gaps in it. And we're going to go all the way over there. Next we have more Joshua trees. And now that we've done this one in detail, you know, their general shape, they kind of look like cacti to me. So I'm going to go, let's see, this big one kind of goes like this, but they're kind of like bulbous, extra bulbous cacti. And this one comes down. I'm just going to do the general shape of these, like that. And then it kind of goes up here and has kind of a ball at the end, and kind of goes up here and gets kind of a ball. There's one up here that's taller. And I'm just going to go through and put them generally where they are without worrying about it too much. Because worrying about it too much takes the fun out of all this. Okay, this guy kind of comes up like that. And then there's another one. He's not straight. He hits about here. And he has two little guys up here. And then this comes up. Another one there. And that looks like that side. Over here we have some more. There's one that starts about here and comes up like that. I don't know if the stuff on the right is damaged. I assume it probably is. I'm not sure. Like why these aren't showing up, if it's damaged or that's just the way it was printed. Okay. And then let's see. We don't want these all to be uniform. So there's this guy comes in like that. It just kind of looks like a scribble there. And then there are a couple more. Let's see, there's this guy starts right there and then comes up. It looks like he has 3. And then there's another guy. We'll do one more. Okay, there's the big stuff. The rest is just, well, I guess there's this. So here's what we're going to do next, is we're going to do the line that goes under the tree, and it kind of goes like that. And the way we're going to do it is the same way we did this. And with scribbles, we're just going to make little grassy scribbles, because we're not going to draw an actual line for it. We're just going to show where it is with black lines from our pen. It's a little thicker here. And remember, it can be a little bit taller here because it's closer. The stuff looks bigger when it gets closer. It kind of follows up in here. And then this leads us down and comes down like that. Oh yeah, I don't know if I mentioned I moved the tree down when before I dried it because I looked at it and the tree was sitting too far up. Oops. And so this kind of comes down here. We'll worry about this bush in a second. We'll do the where he sits first. Okay, and here's how we're gonna do this bush. We are going to make some lines and generally the shape. He sits on a little divot. So we're going to do that, 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 and that. Now we're going to put little oval dot things on the top and they're connected. There we go. And then we're going to kind of go in like we're doing a pine tree kind of. I'm just going to do scribbles like this all the way down one side and scribbles like that all the way down the other. And I'm going to do that for all of these. And that is going to be our bush. And there's our bush. So can you, yeah, you can see some cat. That's Maurice. Now I'm just going to go in and add the little details down here. There's another little divot here. We're just going to show that with grass. Goes down. That goes back up. Okay. There are all these. It might be shadows next to these. Right, and this one has this little bit that goes all the way to the edge. It's got a little bit here, a little bit here. And there's some taller stuff about here. Taller, denser stuff. And then we're just going to go in and add some detail up in here. And this is... Now the only kind of rule to this is the stuff that you put toward the back, make it smaller than the stuff that goes up front because it's farther away. Also, don't try and copy it completely because remember we've spread this painting out some. It's wider than Gearhart intended because, you know, because we're using a different size of paper. Looks like a little plant of some sort. There's some grass over here. You can put this stuff wherever you want. Like, really don't worry about getting it exact because there's no point in that and that's no fun. I'm just gonna, oh, there's some in the corner. I'm just putting some scribbles, and that's all they are, in the general locations where they are in the painting without worrying about it too much. Let's see, there's more down here. Just make scribbles wherever you want them. And I'm gonna, I think, say that's it for the detail I'm adding. You can add more or less than you want. And really, this is the end of our painting, unless you want to do the, I think, neato line frame around it, like is in the actual woodcut. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm just going to make a little line around the whole painting, right over everything else I've done. I'm going to make it a little curved at the corners. You can use a ruler if you want to do this. I'm just kind of making it up as I go. Just trying to keep it generally the same width. You'll have an easier time with this for using a marker. But or a brush pen like I'm using. I'm just going to go around the whole thing. And it's not going to be perfect, but that one certainly isn't either. And give it a little black frame. Okay, there is my one, and now all I have left to do is sign it. Sign it right here. Don't forget to sign yours. Okay. And now for the super fun part. I am going to pull off all this tape. We are going to end up with a lovely finished painting. If you want to see more of Frances Gearhart's woodcuts, which I adore, you can Google her and say search images, and you will see a lot of them. Most of them are California landscapes, and I just think they're amazing. So this one was a little bit different because it's Joshua tree, but that's California landscape, and you know, it's not the usual trees that you see in most of California, or at least the parts I've been to. Okay, here is our completed painting. I really like this one. This painting, this design definitely has an ugly stage. And like the 2 times I've done it, I did it for this and I made the traceable, which you can download below. It's always a little bit concerning at some point in this painting for me, just because I'm like, oh, this doesn't look good, and I see one little bit that I missed. Then I'm going to go back and just add some more stuff here. Better. But I really like the way this turned out. I think it looks fantastic. I think it looks a lot like Gearhart. Just imagine having to carve out all of the negative space, which means like the where the mountains are, all of it, and this is the part that sticks out. Like making woodcuts takes some kind of serious dedication and lots of time. Anyway, I hope you had a good time. I hope you had as good a time as I did. If you painted along, please take a picture of it and share it with the library social media, because we love to see what you're doing and to share what you're doing. Thank you for watching this week's art club. I will be back next week and we'll paint something else. Bye.